I'm Shahar Azani, and welcome to this very special episode of Eye on Israel. Israel's relationship with the Arab world has been going through significant changes over the past few years. Indeed, the last couple of decades have seen some thawing of the relations between Israel and various Arab countries, but these were mostly on the down low, as they say, hidden from the public eye, often robed in different cloaks, business and others. However, since the Abraham Accords came to be under the Trump administration and Israel's Prime Minister, then and now, Benjamin Netanyahu, there has been a true golden age in this regard, with tourists and business people traveling back and forth, Jewish communities flourishing in the Gulf, and even Holocaust education, unheard of before. Our special guest today on Eye on Israel has a unique outlook on it all, truly one of a kind. Ofir Gendelman has been Israel's face and voice to the Arab world for the past 17 years, truly ubiquitous in all of the images in this regard. He was the spokesperson for 3 consecutive Israeli prime ministers to the Arab world for 13 years. In this capacity, which he was the very first to fill in Israel's history, he led all of the Israeli government's strategic communications, public diplomacy efforts, and outreach campaigns in the Middle East, aiming at bolstering Israel's regional standing and creating new avenues and partnerships with Arab countries. Ophir also played a leading role in promoting the Abraham Accords in the region. Prior to joining the Prime Minister's office, Ophir served as a career diplomat. Amongst his positions, he was the Foreign Ministry spokesperson to the Arab world for 4 years and Israel's consul in Canada. Ophir has concluded his long service with the Prime Minister's office only a few weeks ago. Since then, he established a consulting firm that helps companies to maximize the effectiveness of their marketing and business development in the UAE, Bahrain, Morocco, and who knows where else to come. Ophir, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, Shahar. It's great to see you, and thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. Let me first ask you the question that each and every viewer today would like to ask. How did you get into this world? I mean, the entire realm of the Arabic language, the Arab world, was it like family, special interest? Where did that come from?
No, it didn't actually run in my family. I was actually, enamored with the Arabic language since I was 7. It's quite bizarre that it started so early, but I remember that being a small kid, I was fascinated with the Arabic culture and language. I grew up in northern Israel. The main city in the area was Nazareth, an Arab city, and there were all these Arab villages around us. And, Arab Israelis, were part of daily life. And I thought it was quite funny that nobody understands what they're saying. So I took upon myself to study the language, and I studied it for, 35 years since I started. And this has been a passion of mine since a very early age.
This is incredible to hear. Did anybody in your family had a passion for it? Did anybody study Arabic before? Or were you the first to embark on it?
I wasn't only the first one in my family. I was the only one in my school, in my neighborhood. That was quite unheard of. It was actually, people, they didn't think it was bizarre, but it was quite unusual.
Right.
But I was really fascinated. I read every book I could about Arab culture, about Arab history, about the Arab-Israeli conflict.
At the age of 7, you say? You started at the age of 7?
Started at the age of 7, yeah.
Oh, that's it. So, and when did you first start to officially learn the language, the Arabic language?
Well, in grammar school, it was mandatory to study colloquial Arabic. But we didn't really learn much, you learn a few words, but you are not really able to communicate. And then I went on to study Arabic at junior high. I got very good grades, but we didn't go very, very far. Right. So when it was time to go to high school, I decided to actually major in Arabic. And my school didn't offer Arabic at all, so I had to go to a school that was relatively far away, about 30 miles away. And this school had a very long and prestigious tradition of Arabic. And, most of Israel's prominent Arabists came from that school, but that school had, entry exams. And I took the exams and I failed. and I failed. I failed the Arabic exam, although I finished the ninth grade with a straight A in Arabic, but my Arabic wasn't enough. So after a lot of efforts, I got another chance to do the exam. But then I decided to actually prepare myself thoroughly. So I went to a private tutor who taught me Arabic for like 6 or 7 weeks. And I went there and studied Arabic 4 or 5 hours a day, every day at that tutor. So after 6 or 7 weeks of studying Arabic rigorously, I came back, took the exam, and I passed with flying colors. And that took me until graduation. I really love the language, and I could imagine what I could do with the language as a career once I grow up.
You are a man of vocation, a man of mission and passion and devotion, clearly from just listening to that incredible journey of yours. I must ask you, knowing Arabic, and of course, empowers you tremendously, in the region, but even like you say, within Israel, since, a big chunk of Israelis are actually Arabic speaking. So I'm just wondering, between me and myself, just don't tell anything to the viewers, you must have encountered some interesting scenarios or situations growing up, because looking at you, you don't immediately assume that you're in complete command and control of Arabic culture and language. And being able to converse in that language in the different areas in Israel, describe one such situation in which you surprised or didn't share that you know the language. You must have had quite a few.
Yeah, it's quite funny. When I speak Arabic here, people are so astonished. A lot of people recognize me because I've been on Arab television channels since 2001.
Oh, you have. As I mentioned before, and it's important that our viewers understand, when I say ubiquitous, I mean it. Ophir was everywhere that Israel officially interacted with the Arab world, side by side with the leaders of Israel, Prime Minister and others. It was truly an impressive path of career.
Yeah, thanks. Well, when I speak Arabic, they get astonished and they ask me, "Did you go to university in Cairo or in Damascus?" Which is, of course, I didn't.
Right.
But I took a lot of effort not only to learn the language, but I learned also the accent.
Right.
So Hebrew and Arabic are totally different languages. There are similarities, but the way you pronounce words and you have different vocabulary, consonants and so forth, it's totally different. You know that because you speak Arabic too. And it took me an effort to actually master the way to pronounce the language like an Arab. So when I speak Arabic, I sound Arab, although I don't really look Arab.
Right.
So that discrepancy is quite catching.
It's catching.
I think, so my business was to communicate Israel's policies and positions. And once you speak the language fluently, like a native, then you're able to actually touch people's hearts and minds, because that shows respect. It shows that you actually took the effort for a long time to study the language thoroughly, that you understand the mentality, that you understand and respect the culture, and that actually went a long way.
That's very, very true. Like you said, it's much beyond the language. It's a respect for the culture. Now, just before we touch upon your career, which is truly fascinating, I just want to ask you one more thing about growing up. Speaking Arabic, growing up as a teenager, during high school, in various arenas, what was the response of your, let's say, immediate environment, and also the places, like the Arab townships or places where you spoke Arabics with Arabs? How did they change their attitude towards you as a result of you knowing the language to that extent, beyond the surprise that I'm sure they have felt?
Well, my immediate surroundings, knew that I was fascinated with the language, and that was, as I said, that was really, really unique. It was, everybody was into computers at the time. Everybody wanted to be
that I remember. Right.
Yeah. So that was the age of the early PCs. That was before the high-tech revolution in Israel, but still, everybody wanted to go into the technology. And learning Arabic, people really didn't understand why I was doing it. They didn't really see a career path. The political climate at the time when it comes to Arab-Israeli relations was very, very different than it is today.
True.
We couldn't really see any, political horizon that comes into fruition.
Right.
And, I was also wondering, what the hell am I going to do with knowing the language? I was certain that something good would come out of it, but I couldn't really imagine where it would take me in
And yet, Ophir, you did it, right? You embarked on this journey, you insisted, you knocked on the doors, you brought them down. What was going through your mind? What did you think you were going to do with it?
I wanted to be a diplomat. Since I was very young, I was thinking, what can I do with the language? And I thought, well, I could be a diplomat. And then I heard that actually being a diplomat in Israel is almost impossible, because I heard of the famed cadets course, and they told me that only 1 out of 100 applicants gets in.
Right.
So I said, well, I can't be that one. There's no way I'm going to be that one, because you can't bet your chances on a 1% chance of being successful.
Right.
So I said, okay, I will go and invest my time and energy in studying Arabic, and maybe something good will come out of it. I didn't really want to become an engineer, a lawyer, or anything like that. I went with my passion without thinking too much, I have to say. Without thinking too much into the future. It's quite challenging for a young person, I guess, anywhere.
And for
look forward 5, 10, 15 years, it's almost impossible. Yes, you can have dreams, but to plan a career path without knowing what's really will be the case in that time, that's quite impossible. And I definitely couldn't see it. And this whole thing of becoming a government or the prime minister's spokesman to the Arab world was a fluke. It just happened.
I think that for many people, especially our younger viewers, when you think about someone like you, you didn't just follow your passion. Maybe you didn't actively see that future, but you have lived that passion throughout your career. And that's truly both astounding and inspirational for anybody watching, and a great impetus to following that passion of yours. You're a lucky man, Ophir. I want to get into the Foreign Service now. What was that like for you? Like, exactly as you were starting to share with us, did you choose this route to a degree from the beginning within the Foreign Service? Did it come about? How did that work out for you? How did you roll in that direction? Because we know how arbitrary the Israeli Foreign Ministry could be. You could be on a certain path and suddenly end up with an appointment to Guangzhou, So how did that work for you? Describe that process for us.
Well, I went to study international relations and Middle Eastern history at university for my bachelor's without thinking too much what I will do at the end of the degree. I was doing these menial student jobs, doing whatever, without really dreaming of becoming a diplomat, because I was told at the very first day of university, somebody, one of the professors told us, you all want to be diplomats, you won't be.
Right.
None of you will be a diplomat. We were 400 people.
Yeah.
So I had no reason to doubt him, right? Because he was a professor, and I thought that he knew what he was talking about.
Professors know best, yep.
Yeah, so I immediately took this off the table. So after I graduated, there was an opportunity for me to join the Foreign Ministry, not as a diplomat, but as an analyst, a very low-level analyst. On Palestinian affairs, and I was, an expert on Palestinian issues.
But Ophir, during your studies, what happens with your Arabic? What do you do with the Arabic in the course of your studies?
Never used it.
Never used it. Did you keep it alive?
Never used it. No, I studied Middle Eastern studies, and that included some Arabic, but I was actually exempt from 99% of all courses on Arabic, because I took an exam and I showed them I know the language. There is no need for me to go through language training.
Right.
So I didn't really use Arabic for all those 3 years. But after I graduated, there was a chance of joining the Foreign Ministry.
Right, and you joined it as an analyst, right?
As a very junior analyst. And after 3 years, I applied to go to the Diplomatic Academy, and to my amazement, I was accepted.
Really shocked and amazed. It's incredible to listen to. For our viewers, I'll just say that getting into the cadet course, the diplomatic training at the Israeli Foreign Ministry, especially in those days, it was very, very competitive. So kudos to Ophir. Not that we're surprised now that we know a little bit more about your passion, and especially the story of how you knocked the doors off when you decided that's the high school you want to attend. And at the foreign ministry, what was your path? Like, what was post-analyst, post-cadet course? What position did you fill? And did it have anything to do with Arabic?
No, it didn't, naturally, because as you said, the ministry is an expert in putting you in places that have nothing to do with your training.
That's true.
So I was put in the religious affairs division, and I dealt with the different churches that have presence here in Israel. I was in charge of the Archbishop of Canterbury's visit to Israel, and that was my path. But after a few months, there was a chance of moving to the Hasbara, if you will,
Right.
Public Communications and Public Affairs Division at the ministry to become an assistant for the Deputy Director Manager. And, I immediately jumped on this opportunity and took it.
Right.
And again, my job had nothing to do with Arabic. So I was there for like 2 or 3 months. And one day, when we were walking down, the street at the ministry.
Well, at that time, Ophir, they know very well of your command of the language.
Yes.
Okay, just making that clear for our viewers. Okay.
Yeah, but I did nothing that had anything to do with the Arabic language or the Middle East. Nothing.
Right.
After the diplomatic academy, after I graduated. So one day when we were walking, just strolling down the street at the ministry, he said, you speak Arabic, right? I said, well, I do. He said, how would you like to become the ministry's spokesman to the Arab world? I said, great, let's do it. And my Arabic was quite passive at the time. I knew Arabic, of course, through and through, but I never really had a chance of going on camera or speaking, for a very long period of time. And but I said I will take the job, without hesitation, without knowing really if I could actually do it.
And you were the first person ever to be in that position at the foreign ministry.
First person ever. Now that was the height of the second Intifada. Suicide bombings every week, horrendous attacks, and my job was to go from one terrorist attack to the other and to speak to the Arab channels that would come there and cover what had happened. So after he told me that, he offered me the job and I took it, I called the bureau chief of Al Jazeera in Jerusalem. I introduced myself in Arabic. I told him my name is so-and-so. I'm the new spokesperson for the ministry for the Arab media. And he was so shocked by my Arabic and by my call. He said, don't go anywhere, I'm coming. So he was there after 15 minutes with a camera crew. And I gave my first interview. It was like a 30-second insert to a story about an attack that happened the day before or whatever. And then it took off. The day after, I got calls from BBC Arabic and other channels. They're saying, why aren't you talking to us? And then it just exploded. And within a week, I was giving 40, 50 interviews a week to Arab TV channels. At that time, I think during the 2 years that I filled this position as a cadet, really as a very, very junior diplomat, I think I gave more than 2,000 interviews. Because the job was hectic and there was nobody else.
Nobody else in the arena. How did that make you feel, Ophir, going through the path that you have since the age of 7? Here you are, standing as an official on behalf of Israel's foreign ministry, speaking Arabic to the Arab world using these outlets. That must have filled you with great pride.
It was also, it filled me also with a great sense of responsibility. Because ultimately you present not only your ministry or your minister, you present your entire country in a state of emergency. So every word had meaning. So every sentence I said was pre-made, was pre-thought of. And I took a lot of time in order to think about the ways in which I can communicate to Palestinians in order to calm things down. Because remember, there were dozens of Israelis killed every month.
I remember
In
very
some
well.
months, even more than 100.
These were
So
terrible, terrible times.
terrible,
I
terrible.
don't know, no Israeli can forget it, as I'm sure many others around the world.
Yeah, terrible, terrible times. And I thought that my job was not only to communicate, the messages about policies, but actually create a change in the realities on the ground, in which I would, try to twist the arm, if you will, of those people who supported terrorist attacks in order to make them think twice that it's not a good idea to actually go on that path. And I took it very, very personally as a mission to actually quell that intifada, albeit through media and communications and persuasion and so forth.
Well, it's very interesting now that we're discussing your interactions with the Arab world. I'd like to hear a little bit from you about your interactions with Arab media. I mean, we're somewhat accustomed to the Western media, to Israeli media. I'm just wondering, in the Arab media, what was it like for you to be an Israeli and present the Israeli point of view? Describe those interactions, if it's similar, and how different it is from the mainstream media that we already know so well in the West.
It's nothing like American media. Nothing. I often refer to it as a dogfight. You're not there, as far as they're concerned, you're not there to actually explain what you're doing and speaking length about your government's policies and so forth. You're there as, I would say, for them, almost as a target. Oh, wow. So my job is to do a few things. One is to get the message across, although they cut you off after 10 or 12 seconds. They ask you a question, you start to answer, and then they cut you off.
Right.
When you get to the point, they cut you off.
And that's across the board with Arab-speaking media.
Almost everywhere, especially on Al Jazeera. Al Jazeera is, of course, the main network. It had at its peak about 70 million viewers. Now it has 50 million, which is still a lot, but it's not where it used to be. And now there's a lot of competition in the Arab media scene. But Al Jazeera was almost, the only player. Yes, there were other channels, but Al Jazeera was the prime time channel to go to. And it was, I have to tell you, it was quite challenging because they wouldn't let you speak. They would ask questions, but they were actually acting as mouthpieces for Hamas and Islamic Jihad and terrorist organizations. It's not like a regular TV channel. Al Jazeera is not really a media tool. It's a tool to promote policy and agenda and ideology, which is very, very anti-Israel. Yes, they did interview Israelis, but but in a very hostile way. And my job was to actually fight the good fight. You go on air in front of 70 million people, you speak in a language that is not your native language. Right. You hear the questions on your earpiece, but you see nothing on the screen. You control nothing. You can't see what is shown. And, when you speak, they would show footage of Israeli airstrikes or Israeli operations, completely ignoring the terrible tragedies on the Israeli side, the casualties and so forth. So the picture was always very one-sided. And on top of that, I have to, defend my country, and I have to persuade the public that is watching that we are, the good guys. We have, truth and justice on our side. And it was quite a challenge, but I did it for a very long time. And, I almost, I almost enjoyed it, because I knew that it was such an intense experience that actually I gave it all. And
was that the situation from the outset? Like, I can only imagine your feelings as a young diplomat embarking on your first interviews, and then you interact this kind of attitude. Did your ability, I can imagine it evolved even better over time, but from the outset, did it shock you? Did it surprise you?
I didn't expect this amount of hostility. We had diplomatic relations with Qatar at the time, and Al Jazeera was famous for its slogan, the view and the other view, that, they took pride in this, in that they were letting others voice opinions that were never shown before to an Arab TV audience. But they had a very clear agenda and ideology and they showed it.
In Ophir, a lot of people think of diplomats as, cold and aloof and, remote and indifferent. The truth is that diplomacy is a very personal business. It becomes intertwined with who you are as a person, as an individual. I want to ask you, sometimes, when you're waiting on the air to take in questions, or just on the way for those interviews, when you're interacting with people in the studio, was it the same attitude you received as an Israeli, even off camera, or was it different off camera than it was on camera?
Off camera, it was totally different. Off camera, it was always very nice. It was always very friendly. I had talks off air with people from Syria, from Lebanon, from North Africa, from Saudi Arabia, just talking as people. And that was quite an experience for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was quite an experience for me, because first I understood that there is a gap between what people are saying on air and off air.
Right.
And often the difference was amazing.
What about the hosts of the shows?
Yeah, I did have quite a few talks with hosts off camera. And in some cases, I even met them. And it was very, human. It's quite funny. I don't think Americans understand it. But, for us to speak with those people is like speaking with people from other planets.
It's true.
Because we never met them.
Right.
There was never any interaction. There was an Arab boycott on any dealings with Israelis. This is still the law in Lebanon. Speaking to an Israeli is a criminal offense. It could get you arrested and prosecuted. Just talking to an Israeli, but speaking with Lebanese off camera, it actually gave me hope.
Have you ever heard anything from them that surprised you off air?
Absolutely.
Like what? Give us a few examples.
That they were not anti-Israel. They didn't hate Israel. They were hoping for peace. They were hoping for better times. They didn't support the Palestinian terrorist campaign against Israel. But they had a job to do. Of course, every Arab media outlet serves, let's say, an agenda. That's the way it is. But speaking with those people and hearing what I wanted to hear, that there is hope, that there is a possibility for normal relations between Arabs and Israelis, that gave me a lot of hope and a lot of comfort and strength to carry on.
Right. And over time, since you've done it for many, many years, you must have developed a relationship with many of these people in various Arab media outlets. Did you feel that your treatment or the kind of attitude that you received from them became a bit more mellow, or how did it differ over time?
Well, it really depends on the person. Some people are more, let's say, committed to that political agenda, and some are not. Some are more professional than others. But I have a story about Al Jazeera. I had an interview, which was a very difficult interview with a certain anchor woman in Al Jazeera. It was during one of the rounds of fighting with Hamas, barrage Israel with thousands of rockets, and I went on air and spoke about the Israeli defensive campaign. And she was so blunt and obvious with her support for Hamas. So I asked her on air, are you a journalist or are you the spokeswoman for Hamas? And she said, no, I'm very professional with you. Of course, I'm a journalist and so forth. But it became clear that she really wasn't, doing her job.
And you had no problem exposing her in public on Al Jazeera?
No, it was live in front of those 70 million viewers. And it was interesting because after the interview has ended, it lasted for like 10 minutes, which is eternity in TV terms.
Right.
I got a call from Al Jazeera saying, we're really sorry for the way that she behaved. That will never happen again. We will reprimand her. And, I took it with a little bit of a grain of salt. But after a week, I got another call from Al Jazeera to come back. And I was ready to rumble.
Yeah.
But the interview went well, and they let me speak, and it was, they really wanted to hear what I had to say. There were no provocations, no interruptions. So that actually that was an interesting experience.
Ophir, you're truly a trailblazer and a very courageous diplomat. I mean, even to think of someone, a youngster grows up in the hope of becoming a diplomat, and not only does he join the Israeli foreign ministry and the Israeli diplomatic machinery, but he's also paving the way in such a unique way that is really a bridge for others to walk on, because we've seen other interactions of the Israeli establishment with Arab-speaking media from different angles, but they all followed your path, and you were the one who really opened the way and showed the way for so many, and for that, I mean, we can be nothing but eternally thankful. This is truly an incredible episode in the Israeli diplomatic history. I'm just wondering on the internal front for a minute. We know, the Israeli political quagmire and chaotic environment. That's a continuous situation. But over the course of your service, you actually served 3 different Israeli prime ministers. So tell us a little bit about that experience. Like how and if your work, did it differ between them? How was your interaction with them? We'd love to hear some of the, inside gossip, but don't tell anyone, just between us and the viewers.
Well, serving as a spokesman for the prime minister is a bit like serving as the press secretary at the White House. You serve at the pleasure of the prime minister. So to move from one prime minister to the other is unique. Now, Netanyahu was in office for 11 years. That's a long time.
Right.
And when he when he finished his term, all his advisors left, and I was the only one who stayed on. So I worked with Prime Minister Bennett. I worked with him on preparing his visit to Bahrain, and that was an interesting experience. During my time with Netanyahu, I even taught him some phrases in Arabic because I made it my mission that he would send a greeting to Ramadan to people in the region.
Did he?
Yeah, he did every year.
Nice.
He recorded a special greeting for Ramadan and for Eid al-Adha.
Oh. In Arabic. He must have been a good student.
Well, he learned a few phrases in Arabic, and
right.
He was very good in languages, as you know. And I think that it was part of, the efforts that led to the thawing of relations with the UAE, Bahrain, and Morocco, because it showed that there is a different approach in the Israeli government towards relations with the Arab world. No prime minister did it before.
Right.
Even at the height of the Oslo Accords time,
right.
Then Prime Minister Rabin never, congratulated the Arab world for Ramadan and so forth. So I thought that a change of tactic, if you will, or strategy will be in place. And that went very, very well. And also, that tradition continued with Bennett. He also recorded the greeting for Ramadan and Eid al-Adha. And I think it's really important because ultimately we're a part of the region. We are a non-Arab country in an Arab region. When there are certain occasions, certain festivals and holidays, it's a good idea to.
I couldn't agree more, and especially with a crusader like you who's done it since the age of 7. I'm just wondering about your outlook on the inside. Have you felt that over time there was more opening for it within the Israeli establishment, more understanding of the need and importance, or were you a unique creature in that environment? I mean, no, you are as it is to begin with and to end with. I'll just make that clear for our viewers. But what's your insight about the internal understanding?
Well, I think that my job as first of all the foreign ministry spokesman to the Arab world was a model for other government agencies in Israel. So the IDF 2 or 3 years later decided that they wanted a spokesman for the Arab world, and
there you go.
Eventually they found a brilliant guy, Lieutenant Colonel Avichai Adroyi, who accidentally went to the same school I did, although many years after me. He's younger, but he's amazing. He does such an amazing service for the military and for the state of Israel. We went to the same class, we had the same teachers, and it really warms my heart that my high school, my alma mater, if you will, actually, is the father or mother of the 2 Israeli prominent spokespeople to the Arab world. So the IDF has one, and then other government ministries follow suit. So you have the Ministry of Internal Security. They have a spokesman for the Arab media. The Ministry of Justice have a spokesman for the Arab media, and
you revolutionized the system, Ophir.
In a way, I think, yeah.
Yeah, you did. I want to tap your expertise for a minute and take advantage of your intimate familiarity with the Arab world around us. You mentioned that you also served as an analyst on Palestinian affairs. Maybe share with us just a little bit about how you view the Palestinian arena at the moment. Gaza and the West Bank, in your opinion, how much are these really two different entities or two parts of one entity? And how do you see the future moving forward between Israel and the Palestinians from what you've learned over time?
I think that these are two different entities, but their position on Israel is not so different. Hamas's vision about Israel is the destruction of Israel. We all know that. It appears in Hamas's charter.
Right.
This is a genocidal terrorist organization that aims to destroy not only the state of Israel, but the entire Jewish people.
Right.
In that way, it's a Nazi Islamic terrorist organization. The Palestinian Authority is a
and sometimes, this very evident truth to us is many a time hidden from the eyes of many who look at it as, resistance or ordinary movement of standing up to oppression. But the truth is exactly as you say, we need to be reminiscent of their goals as they're detailed in their own charter and their own statements. They don't do a very good job or even try to hide it.
They don't try to hide it. On the contrary, they take pride in it. All you need to do is listen. So when it comes to the Palestinian Authority, that's a different kind of entity, a very fragmented entity, a very unfunctioning or dysfunctional entity because of corruption, mismanagement, and sheer dictatorship. When it comes to Israel, I think that if you look at the Palestinians as a whole, there is a common denominator, and that is they do not want peace. That's the hard truth. They do not want peace. They do not want to accept the fact that we are living here, that we have a right to be here, that the solution is dividing the land in one way or the other and living in peace. That's out of the question.
Right.
They still dream about the day in which they will throw us into the sea and destroy Israel. And this is, I understand that this sounds a bit maybe exaggerated, but this is the reality. I've been in the business for 35 years. I want to make it very, very clear. I don't say this lightly. This is the way it is. No Palestinian leader, there is no one, not one, that says the Jews have a right to live here, that this is their ancestral land. We have to end the conflict and move on. Nobody says that. Abu Mazen doesn't say that. And of course, nobody else says that. Nobody there wants to end the conflict because they benefit from it, politically and economically.
Right. It became an industry, really an employment opportunity. And that's why we're so fortunate that we were able to change the equation a little bit, and instead of waiting for peace with the Palestinians, to already reach out to the Arab world with whom we have common interests. And we hear that Oman also declared that it's opening its airspace for Israeli airlines. And I'm just wondering, again, in your vast experience and view, do you see a chance to expand the peace cycle that we already have under the Abraham Accords to Saudi Arabia, to other countries? And how do you think the Palestinian situation might affect this?
Well, I think that the Abraham Accords circle will definitely expand. It's just a matter of time. I think Saudi will be a part of it. I think Oman will be a part of it. And you have to bear in mind, even though we don't have formal relations with some countries, we have informal relations with these countries. Israeli athletes went to Saudi Arabia to compete. That was unheard of, unthinkable, unfathomable a few years ago.
Correct.
Saudi Arabia opened its airspace for Israeli airliners. Oman did so today. And things are changing slowly but surely. And of course, the relations with the UAE and Bahrain and Morocco have expanded tremendously in the past 2.5 years since we established the diplomatic relations with them. Now the go-to destination for Israeli tourists is is not Europe as it used to be. It's Dubai.
Right, right.
If I would have told you 3 years ago that Israelis would flock to Dubai,
Right. I
you
would have
would
never
never
believed
believe me.
I still remember you're talking about this reality. Well, only a few years ago, I remember that an Israeli who happened to be working under the UN auspices of the United Nations Environment Program, there was a summit in Saudi Arabia, and they wouldn't let him in, even though he wasn't an Israeli diplomat. He was working as part of the UN machinery, but just because of his passport, he was not allowed. And look, behold of the reality we face today. It truly gives us hope. Do you think the Palestinian situation may hamper progress on that path, or what kind of relations does it have between what's happening with the Palestinians and potential progress with the Arab world?
You know, the Palestinians are very frustrated that they lost their grip
Right.
on Arab relations with Israel. They used to dictate everything. They used to control everything. You know, if a certain Arab country wanted to get close to Israel, the Palestinian would have a tantrum, a political diplomatic tantrum, and you know that Arab country would have second thought. This era is gone. You know, the train has left the station. You know, Arab countries have their own interests in mind, and Israel to them is a part of the solution, not the problem. Israel is a great friend to have in this region.
Right, facing similar challenges and opportunities. I want to make sure, Ophir, I just have to be honest with you and our viewers. I could sit and talk to you for hours and hours and hours. You're fascinating to hear. But I just want to make sure we have enough time to talk a little bit about your focus today. We learned of your new consultancy. What are you hoping to achieve in this new and really exciting episode in life that is somewhat different, but not that different from what you've done? And in this regard, what lessons have you learned that you're trying to share with others about working with the Arab world in this new era of ours?
So I left the government like 7 weeks ago. It's very, very fresh.
Right.
And I've established my own consultancy firm that helps Israeli companies expand their business in the UAE, Bahrain, and Morocco. And on the same token, it helps Emirati, Bahraini, and Moroccan companies expand their business in Israel because, you know, business is booming. And, you know, there's so much opportunity, so much talent that, you know, I really want to give all my expertise in order to push this forward, because ultimately this is the cement that holds these relations together, and
Correct.
this is, you know, the founding block of future relations between our two peoples and countries. So what I have learned with my dealings in the Arab world, that everything is personal. Everything is personal in the sense that, you know, doing business in the Arab world is based on relationships. And I just spoke a few days ago with a prominent Emirati businessman, and he told me, you know, Ophir, we are a relationship-driven society. We want to get to know you before we make business with you. We want to be your friend. We want to know what you think. We want to know what you like. We want to know how you do business. We want to really get to know you before we can commit to a business deal with you. And I think that this is key. You know, there's such a difference between Israeli business culture and the Emirati and Arab business culture. And my job is to bridge between these cultures so we can actually use this huge potential for the benefits of the two peoples.
You know, the truth is, Ophir, that I know it from my life. Once a diplomat, always a diplomat, because diplomatic work is connecting people, is opening doors, is being a bridge between nations and people, which is exactly what you're going to continue to doing. And the truth is that the kind of service you provide may be very beneficial, not just to Israeli companies, but from companies from all over the world who wish to endeavor into the Arab world in this wonderful new opportunities that are opening up, especially with Israel being at the center of so much, you know, creativity, innovation, and activity. And do you feel that at this time and age, when you interact with Israeli companies, do they see the need? Do they understand the need for that kind of service? And how do they reach you if they want to reach you for such service? How do they contact you?
Well, so many Israeli companies are contacting me for, you know, doing business in the UAE, because, you know, everybody, you know, once there was this declaration of relations, everybody flocked to Dubai and thought that, you know, it would be really, really easy. But the fact is that it's not that easy, and it takes time. It takes time to know the local market. It takes time to know the right people. It takes time to open the doors. and that's where I come in.
Right.
I'm known all over the Arab world from being on Arab TV channels for almost 20 years, and I hugely believe in personal relations and in investing the time and effort to get to know each other, to get to know what the other side wants and needs, and then make the right fit with the Israeli company or the Emirati company that wants to do business.
So
I believe in a win-win.
Right, a true diplomat, win-win. I'm just wondering if anybody wants to reach out to you and seek your counsel on these issues. How do they reach you? Through social media outlets, email? How do you want people to contact you?
Well, through LinkedIn, Ofir Gendelman, or through my website, ofirgendelman.com.
Ofirgendelman.com. That's spectacular, Ophir. I think that what you do is of immense importance in you showing the way. I've learned a lot in the course of our conversation, and I have to admit was inspired as well with these glimmers of hope that sometimes are hidden from the eye in times of, dark news cycles.
Shahar, thank you so much for this interview.
And I'd like to thank you, Ophir, for your many years of service for the state of Israel and for the people of Israel and for the world, really, and the region, and for promoting peace and understanding in this very much needed region that emanates from the personality that we've interacted with and from understanding who you are at the age of 7, seeking to learn the language, culture of the other. That's truly amazing. I personally have learned. I'm sure our viewers have as well, and I'm eager to hear of all that's yet to come, in which I'm sure you will also will have a hand, whether diplomatically or otherwise. I want to thank you for taking the time to share your insights with JBS, with us, and with our viewers here in the United States. And I'd like to thank all of you for watching and learning so much from our esteemed guest in unbelievable adventures that you are bound to hear nowhere else than right here on JBS. I'm looking forward to seeing all of you, our viewers, next time as we cast another fascinating eye on Israel. Thank you all for watching.
We would be pleased to send a complimentary DVD of this program to anyone who wishes to support JBS with a tax-deductible gift of $36, double chai or more. Simply visit the JBS website at jbstv.org and click on the Donate button to make a donation by PayPal or your credit card. And please indicate the program for which you would like a DVD. Or you can send your tax-deductible check to JBS, Post Office Box 360, Stamford, Connecticut 06904. Or you can call the JBS Pledge Line at 833-MY-JBS-TV. That's 833-695-2788. And again, please remember to indicate which program you would like to receive with our compliments. We thank you for your kind support.